Hello and welcome to the podcast for Real Life Heroines with Susanna Liller. Join us bi-weekly as alongside of you, we work toward answering the call, knowing that stepping into our destiny always involves going into the unknown and exploring new landscapes. This show talks about those new landscapes, what it took to get there, and the real challenges that take place for most of us along the journey. Heroines don't stay in their comfort zone. They follow their inner guidance to grow and evolve. From the School for Real Life Heroines, your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me in my podcast for Real Life Heroines, where I get to interview women, heroines, and sometimes heroes about their heroine's journey and find out what has taken them over the threshold and into the unknown. And sometimes they meet dragons there on the other side, but always they grow and benefit from being out there in the unknown and learning. So today, I'm really pleased to have Erin Curren be with us today. Erin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Susanna. It's a joy and a privilege to be with you and your audience.
Let me say a few words about you. Erin has done a lot, which we're going to talk about. In fact, I don't even know where we're going to begin, but she is a lifelong learner. She is an artist, a performer, life coach, and teacher. After earning her PhD in French, so I have to wrap my head around that one, PhD in French, me who took 3 years of French in high school and can say, not much. Bonjour. And teaching in academia, she realized she was doing, this is so key to this whole conversation. She realized she was doing somebody's dream job, but just not hers. She has since rediscovered her love of dance and movement and teaches NIA, which we'll ask her to explain to us, to adults of all ages. Erin has found joy and gratification in serving others through the art and practice of life coaching. And I happen to know that recently she has become an official accredited, what's the ACC, Associate Life Coach.
Yes.
And in addition, we're going to talk about this too, Erin performs monthly as part of the Teller's Garden, which is a playback theater company. And let's not forget that she has a wonderful husband, Bob, and she has a dog, but she didn't tell me her dog's name.
Decaf.
Decaf.
Decaf was cappuccino in the shelter and came at us with a lot of energy. So we.
Perfect. So again, welcome. I love it that you're here and that I captured you, Erin. So thank you. So when I mentioned those things, and then I have the list here of what there's you crossing several thresholds, you leaving academia, you getting sober, you learning NIA, you teaching NIA, you becoming a life coach, you, what am I missing? The Teller's Garden, where you first did playback theater and that morphed into Teller's Garden. So when I say all those things to you, what stands out? Boy, Susanna, this was a big one. What would you start with?
Yeah. Well, really for me, I was living, I like to say sometimes call it like by default. I was sort of going through the motions of my life, doing what I thought other people expected of me and doing what I thought society, expected of me to some extent, making things look good on the outside for many years. And when I think about that time in my life compared to now, the pivotal point in changing that for me was getting sober.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a lot that goes into that, and it's not an overnight affair. But it is something for me that really changed everything.
Yeah. You know, I'm coming to realize from the women that I'm meeting and the many wonderful, amazing heroine journey stories that I hear, that getting sober, the road of recovery, is probably one of the hugest heroines, heroes journeys of them all. And it hits all the points. Having the courage to cross a threshold and go into the unknown. So I'm thinking, if I'm remembering, well, okay, one thing at a time. So if I'm remembering correctly, you were in a NIA class when somebody asked you, your teacher, I think,
Yeah.
were you okay? And
Yeah.
that facade that you had built, and I'm picturing you, because of course my alma mater is one of the schools, Colby, that you actually taught in.
Yeah.
And it's such an elevated academia place, as are the other places you taught. And she asked you if you were okay, and you said the facade kind of slipped. And what do you mean by that? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was like there was a crack, a chink in the wall, and a little light came in. And for that moment, I got honest. And I was almost speaking, it felt like out of turn, or without my inner critic's permission, or my inner, that voice that inside that's sort of like, oh, don't be too honest, or don't go there, that might get us in trouble.
I
So
know
yeah,
that voice. Yeah.
I would have to say that NIA, the practice of NIA, and my teacher at the time's name is Maggie, and so I credit Maggie for holding that space and being my first NIA teacher. And for me, getting into my body and doing something I've always loved to do, dance, giving myself permission to express, to use my voice, to be powerful and soft, to balance these kind of yin yang qualities through movement, I think was absolutely, directly, unequivocally correlates to my honesty, my ability to get honest in that moment with that person, and really what catapulted me into a sober life. And that's why I continue to teach NIA and feel so that has such an impact and power to this day in my life.
So I should tell people that I was lucky enough to be in one of your classes over Zoom. So I know I do what it's like. Can you tell us about NIA? What can you say to people who don't have any idea, maybe have never heard of it before?
Sure. And NIA, this year, NIA is actually celebrating 40 years of existence. So it was launched as one of the original fusion fitness classes in 1983. And what it fuses is it blends the energy of martial arts with dance and mindfulness, or the healing arts. And in summary, for me, NIA is an experience, a physical experience that invites all of me to show up. It invites my emotions, my spirit, my imagination onto the dance floor. And I'm encouraged to express and personalize and really find the release I'm seeking. That can be a great sweaty workout where I really feel my edges and feel the conditioning benefits. It can also be using my voice, punching, kicking, softening, playing with, for example, claw hands, scratching the space. I continue to be amazed by how my mind and my imagination will bring images and bring the sensory awareness into my dance, and something that needs getting out is able to express in the Nia class. And the 52 moves class, the move it class that you experienced, is really the language of Nia, the physical moves that start in the base and work all the way up to the finger techniques, that we spend a minute on each. So you really get that sampler, if you will, an interval workout. But the classic Nia class is combining these moves with the music to create a magic that I certainly feel as teacher, and it's my aim to pass that on and inspire that in my students.
And if I'm understanding, you're saying that taking that class had a lot to do with you breaking through that facade, and we talk about it as there was an ambiguity, there was a disconnect in how you were living your life and who you were. And to me, so much, that's what I work with women, is to get that incongruence. And so I think what you're saying is the body is so important to bring into the equation.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. I was working with a client just recently, and I bring a lot of those embodiment exercises or prompts into the coaching space for exactly that reason, Susanna. It's like a person's body has so much information that's not necessarily conscious. And when we can make that bring that to the foreground in a coaching session and have them see, make a connection, have an insight based off of simply what their body did when prompted. In the case of a recent client, it was, show me your body at work, completely different body posture and gesture than how she feels in another context. She's not happy at work. And just feeling into that contrast was so insightful. And it led to, not only an insight, but something that she could take forward into her week and actually use to begin to align, to find that coherence you're speaking about.
Right.
And it's a small step toward a much larger goal, obviously, but the body is an incredible source of wisdom, and knows it keeps the score, as we say. We don't want those issues in our tissues, and that's why we move. Right? We don't want, because the body is always keeping track, and we may not, that's in my life, at least that's what it was. It was like, I felt like I could live behind this facade and be okay and just drink down my discontent, or, drink away my discomfort. But the body knows, the body, it's all getting just stuffed in there somewhere.
Definitely stuffed. And I think so much of the work that I do with the heroine's journey is people stuck in that comfort zone, in that facade, afraid to let it go.
Yeah.
And so to hear that in some way getting the body involved to work with you is a great tool. To me, it's a sentient being, right? That can inform you and your journey. Yeah. And it's interesting, Erin, and I'm sure everybody says this to you. So while you're talking, and having been in your class, and then having been in the telling garden, watch that. But I've seen how when you talk, it's like you're dancing, you're moving your arms, and it's lovely to watch.
Thank you. And the body expressiveness, so much of what we communicate and what we understand from other people is nonverbal.
Yeah.
And or in the tone, the volume tone that we use, it's not necessarily the words. And so much of that has become clearer and clearer to me over the course of time. And improv is a great example of that, where we're with other people stepping into the unknown together, right? And picking
Very
up on those subtle cues.
right. So let's talk about that. And
Yeah, the Teller's Garden.
love improv, love it. Not that well, I have taken a class in it, but watching it is just so much fun. And I feel like I could just throw anything at you right now out of the blue and you'd be able to react perfectly because you're so used to that. So talk about the Teller's Garden. And I will tell people when I went, and so it's every first Friday
Yes.
here in Maine. And in Portland, though, as I understand it, it's worldwide.
Yes, playback theater is
But-
worldwide. Yeah.
And so how does that explain, please, how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. Playback theater is a unique form of improvisation where audience members raise their hand, all volunteer, and come up to the front of the stage and tell a story, a true story, share a story from their lives. And it can be a moment, it can be a memory, it can be a more fully fleshed out story. And the conductor for the evening, or the MC, who's there with them listening, as are the improvisers and the audience, we're all hearing this story for the first time. Could have been something that happened earlier that day, or something from their childhood, or any number of things. We live such storied lives, when we think about it.
We do.
The conductor then chooses a form. We rehearse these forms as a company. And then the teller's asked to sit. We call the person who volunteers from the audience the teller. The teller is asked to sit in the front in a special chair designated for them. And then they watch the improvisers play back what we've all just heard without any planning or preparation. The only planning that the group has is the form that the conductor's called, and the group knows what that means, whether it's a fluid sculpture, a narrative V, a harmony circle, a fluid duet, uncast story, chorus. There's a number of forms that we use. And so all the improvisers know is, okay, we're going to take what we just heard and we're going to put it into this form and watch what happens. And that's what we say. We say, let's watch together. Let's watch. And I'd love to hear what the experience was like for you as an audience member new to playback.
Oh my gosh. So number one, let me just say, I was amazed at how you could take this snippet, and there was, as I remember, particularly a lot of teenage girls being the tellers, and so all kinds of stories, and you just take it in like that, and then you create a thing of beauty around it. I mean, I know, of course, that you rehearse the forms, but you're just all at the same time taking in this story and interpreting it through your individual filters and harmonizing it with everybody else in the acting group at the same time. It's a thing of beauty to watch. And so imagine, people listening, what it's like being the person in the chair, having relayed, this is my story, and seeing it back. And they were definitely very moved. And I was moved, and it wasn't my story. It was, it's quite an experience, and it's quite a gift, I think, you give to those people.
Thank you. Yeah, I moved listening to you. It's what comes to mind is the universal, right? There's universal elements in all of our stories, and your work with the heroine's journey really speaks to this. Like, we can see commonalities, and we're having, we're spiritual beings having this human experience. And whether it's a teenager from a foreign country, or an older person who's lived lifetimes, or a very young person who we've had tellers who are, no more than 5 years old come up there. And everyone, there's an element to everyone, what they share that we can relate to. Yeah. And that's what we talk about. It's like the story is the pebble, and it gets thrown into the the
Right.
water of the improvisers, and what you see back is ripples of your experience. It won't be the exact pebble, that you shared, the exact story, but what that affords us is new insights, new awareness, new ahas into how we're all connected.
Right. And I would say to see your story in form acted out gives you that objective place and a perspective that you don't have when the story's all inside of you. And
Absolutely.
boy, what a learning tool, right? Um, and I think that certain parts of your company, and maybe I'm thinking more about Playback than Teller's Garden, have actually done things like go into companies who are having conflict and act out the conflict so that the company can gain that same perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely, spot on. We are for hire, so we do corporate and nonprofit company and organizational retreats. We've done a number of those, and also private parties and milestone occasions like retreats and retirements and birthdays and weddings. And
Right.
what I'm thinking of recently is the work we do with a hospital in Maine, where we go up and for their annual retreat, they hire us to come and play the stories from this leadership team.
Yeah.
And the stories that they're able to share coming together and just dive right in, and the depths, as you can imagine, that people share, the heart, the emotion. And this is what I personally love about Playback, is that unlike improv for comedy, or like, a lot of people think of Whose Line Is It Anyway, or,
Right. One of my favorite
improv
shows.
shows,
Yeah.
really fun stuff. Unlike those that are purely for comedy and for laughs, Playback opens the door and creates a space for the range of human emotion, the poignant, the hilarious, and everything in between. And so when we go to these organizations and corporations and offer our services, the team, whoever is there in the room, really gets to dive much deeper, I would say, than a typical retreat allows or affords, giving this playback, given the uniqueness of the playback form.
Mm. Maybe this is an unfair question, but of all of the playback experiences, does one stand out that you could maybe describe to us that was particularly meaningful for you?
Well, one that stands out for me is my first time ever conducting. I conduct along with the artistic director of our company, Jeep Amara, and it was my first time conducting. So this was in the former company called Portland Playback Theater, and it was a young man, a refugee, who came up to share his trauma.
Mm.
And I remember feeling like, wow, this story is so big. And one of the gifts of playback is that we can play back someone's experience non-verbally. We can use our bodies, we can use metaphor, we can use the instruments at the music table, we can use these things to make to create the bigness, the incredible power of this experience without having to go into the details. And he, thankfully, I just remember that in particular, as it was my first time conducting, and it felt like a huge gift and also a huge responsibility
Right.
to honor this young man's tragic experience. And and so unlike comedy improv, we really welcome stories of all intensities and flavors. And sometimes it's a tragic story or a traumatic event that we're looking at in hindsight, and we can actually laugh about And I do find that tellers are most often comfortable sharing something, even if it's incredibly poignant. They have some distance and some lightness around it at the time that they're ready to come up and share it with the audience.
Right. Well, I loved it. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've got to get you to work with me and work with the heroines and tell their journey stories.
Absolutely.
Are
Well,
remarkable.
and the time you went, we were partnering with a company of girls, and that's why we had so many of those younger voices in the room, which was super special. So we're always open, tellersgarden.com, to collaborating and to having conversations and working with other organizations, and folks who want to blend playback in with their missions. Absolutely.
No, definitely. We're going to do that. You heard it here. So I'm looking
Awesome.
I'm making sure that of all these things we've hit the big ones. I so many women are listening, and they are probably in the place where you might have been, where you were before you crossed the threshold and let the light shine in, and you were still keeping the facade and living the dream that was a dream to many, to be in academia, and probably rewarded well for it, and thinking, I can't do it. They haven't had that opportunity perhaps that Maggie gave you. So what would you say to them?
Yeah.
How do you drop the facade that maybe you've carried for so long, like everything's fine, I'm fine, when it's not? And
Yeah. I think it's such a great question and place to draw our attention to. Just like you've said, um, since it does lead us to this feeling of stuck, like trapped almost. I don't feel like I have choices. And the first thing I would say is to really have compassion for yourself. To not use this as an opportunity to ignite the judge and the inner bully or inner critic and say, look at these other people, they've made the leap, what's wrong with you, you're fill in the blank. Like, we all have that voice, and this isn't the time for the inner bully.
And even Erin, I think that voice could be saying, look at what you have. Look at where you've gotten yourself, and you're complaining. What's wrong with you?
Right. Absolutely. That speaks very much to my own experience, where it's clearly a dream job. These are
Right.
wonderful institutions. So what I would say after that, like, have compassion for yourself. Self-care is huge. If you don't already have an outlet, someone you can be honest with in your life, find someone you can be honest with. And it may not be the friend you always go on a walk with. It may be someone who doesn't know you as well, may be the best person to be confiding in, whether that's a coach or a therapist or someone you're reconnecting with over the decades. But having someone hear your authentic truth and hear yourself saying that, speaking that out to someone else, I feel like is a huge gift. And it really has helped me personally be able to notice what's true. If I'm saying something out loud to another person,
Right.
and it's not coherent, it's not aligned with what my truth is, I'm very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I notice, like, I'm uncomfortable in my skin, and that's gotten heightened as I've lived sober. I have a much lower tolerance for acting and speaking out of alignment with who I am.
Yeah.
And so often, it's easy to um, to say things when we're a little bit absent and numbed out. Like, it's easy to gossip if we're, not really in our integrity.
Yes.
And so I would say, find someone who you can safely speak your truth to, and then make start small. What's one little thing I can do this week that would inch me towards this bigger change that I'm looking for? Those are
Right.
some things that come to mind.
Those are all great, and I would agree. And I think sometimes people feel it has to be some big thing, and that's scary in itself. And those smaller steps, absolutely. But what I'm coming to understand is that that's really our task in life, is to become congruent with who we are and not have that ambiguous facade. That's a job, and it's the heroine's journey helps you get there. And the body, I think what you've brought to this discussion, which I don't talk about much because I should never say this in front of you, but I don't do enough with my body. But that's important. It's a really important piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Our bodies, our language, our emotions, these are fundamental pieces of who we are, how we show up. And if we're overly in our heads
Yeah.
or overly in our bodies, or ignoring our emotions, we're going to be out of that alignment. And I
Right.
just got chills when you were talking about, like, that's what we're here to do, is be coherent and be a coherent expression of our spirit. You are a unique spirit on this planet, Susanna, and no one is going to do what you're doing the way you do it. And your voice is so needed. And every person has that
Same thing.
potential. And like, what a huge gift to actually move closer to speaking our truths and taking up that space authentically and saying, this is what I believe, and I'm standing in integrity, walking my walk here.
So on that wonderful note, I'm going to start bringing us to a close, but I just want to say one thing, and then I'm going to ask one thing. What I'm going to say as part of my truth is I've been doing studies into what is this thing called the sacred feminine. And we talked about it a little bit when you and I talked earlier. And I'm coming to believe that the more women who are able to find that congruity, who bring their voice out and stand in their truth and say, even though they might feel foolish saying, I don't really want this expensive career that rewards me so much in academia or wherever, I want to just leave it. To have the courage to do that is bringing forward the sacred feminine, more of that feminine energy into the world, which is needed to balance with the masculine energy, neither being good nor bad, it just needs to be balanced, is what I'm finding as I learn and research the topic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking as a woman, I just finished a great book called The Body Liberation Project. And I know how much of our energy, and I'll speak for myself, can go into the facade, appearance, and the diet culture, to name one thing that's a big energy suck and drain. And I would say that as women, the more we sort of align with what's true for us, and dissociate and stop buying into harmful limitations that aren't true, that really keep us in separateness and judging one another rather than being true to ourselves and celebrating the truth we see in another and really lifting each other up. That I feel like is a huge shift that we have a lot of work to do in as a culture. The Body Liberation Project is by Chrissy King. It's a new book, and what she says in it is not new, but it's a lot of. It gave me a lot of thought-provoking inquiry, reflection questions, and I'm loving it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, so here's my question to you, and then I will make us stop because I could ask you so many more questions. This has been such a good conversation.
Me too.
But Erin, if people were to take away any one thing from this conversation, to remember they're so busy, the women listening, what would you want to make sure that they remembered from you today?
The very first thing that comes to me, actually, and it didn't come to my head, interestingly, it came into my chest, is to listen to your body. To listen to your body. And that's the philosophy we have in NIA, and I think it applies universally, that when we get busy, when we get in our heads, when we are on our computers going through the motions of life, it's so easy to just think the body is there to carry our heads around. Right? The body is so much more. And so to really begin to honor your body by listening and giving the body space to speak its needs, whether that's through the language of sensation, pleasure, and pain, or through smaller indicators like, I just, I have this urge to change my position, or get a glass of water, or, shake, whatever it is. The body has this incredible wisdom, and it's ancient wisdom. And we tend to think that modern is better, and the newfangled stuff, and the wisdom of this body got us, it evolved us to this place.
Right.
And so to listen to your body,
where I am ashamed to admit that often I power through what that wisdom is. Oh, I would like to get up. No, I can't get up. I have to keep working. Yeah. Listen to your body. Well, that's something I think I know people will take from this. So again, Erin, this is great. I look forward to working with you in some way with the heroines, that my community of heroines. And I encourage people to check out. So the next Teller's Garden would be June something, Friday.
Yes, I think it's early in June next month. First Friday always lands on that, it changes, but it's June 2nd.
Okay.
If this comes out there, but it's first Friday throughout the year. So you can count on that. The show starts at 7 p.m. and it's at the Portland Media Center, which is located at 516 Congress Street. And there's a suggested ticket price of $15 per person, $10 for seniors. And, we don't have a practice of turning people away. So this is just to cover our rent. And we do this, we're citizen actors, and we do this as a service to the community.
Oh, and it is a service. And Nia, we'll put these in the show notes, but how to get a hold of you and your Nia classes, which are online and in person.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And if people are curious about NIA, the website for the practice is NIA Now. That's NIANOW.com.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you have given us so much, so many tools, things to look at, shared your story. I wish I could play it back to you, but but so much of it is who you are and how you express with all of you, not just the words that come out of your mouth. So
thank you, Susanna.
Lovely. Thank you, Erin. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you'll stay tuned for the next one, which should come out in 2 weeks, another heroine on her journey. And good luck and blessings on your journey. Bye, everybody.
You've been listening to the podcast for Real Life Heroines with Susanna Liller. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to connect with Susanna outside of the show, please do. You can email susanna@susannaliller.com and visit the website at susannaliller.com. Let's get social. Instagram @Susanna Liller, Facebook Susanna Liller, author, speaker, and coach. Don't forget to subscribe to the show for easy access to our next episode. And a like and review would be very helpful. Until next time, remember to follow your inner guidance to grow and evolve.